Hi. I am personally super excited about this panel. We're going to talk about AI governance and policy, specifically in the Middle East. So if you have ideas about startups or companies you want to set up here or just want to understand the landscape, I think this is really the time to hear about experts in the field. And then we have hopefully a bit of time for Q&A. So please welcome with me Poliana Geha, who's from the Google Dubai team, Google MENA team, working on government affairs and public policy, who will be moderating the panel. I will then love to welcome Dr. Noha Adly also to the stage. So Dr. Noha obtained her PhD in computer science from the University of Cambridge. She currently serves as the advisor to the Minister of Communication and Information Technology for R&D, the ministry in Egypt, but also is the director of R&D at the Applied Innovation Center in Egypt, Alexandria. I would then love to welcome Dr. Sanjay Chawla to the stage. Sanjay contributed to the development of the national AI strategy of Qatar and is part of the FANAR team, Qatar's Arabic-centric multimodal Gen AI platform, and has been the most prominent lead last year for the first edition of MenaML. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. And last but not least, would love to welcome Mehdi Ghissassi to the stage. Mehdi is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at AI71. He leads the product and engineering team, applying research into products and services that bring the benefits of AI to enterprises. He joined AI71 in 2024. Previously, he was at Google and Google DeepMind. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. And I will leave it to Poliana.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. Ya'tikum al-afi. Thank you all for being here. And a huge round of applause to our panelists. Thank you all for being with me. My name is Poliana Geha. Thank you, Maria, for the wonderful introductions. I lead government affairs and public policy for Google Cloud. I look after Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey. I feel very strongly about the progress and the potential in the region. It's my absolute honor to be here. It's my first time in Jeddah, first time at KAUST. So thank you so much for the invitation and for giving us the space to talk about something that keeps me up at night, which is around governance of AI. How are we going to approach the next phase of AI adoption and deployment? I spent some time earlier today. Everybody can hear me? There's a little bit of echo. Does everybody can hear me fine? Perfect. I spent some time earlier today looking at all of your posters, and I'm incredibly impressed. This was not the case when I was at university. It's incredibly exciting to see the potential in the region and what you all are doing and the next generation of AI enthusiasts. We know that AI feels new and it feels powerful for many people. We know it can be confusing for governments and for those of us working with governments and advising on the next generation of how governments will look and regulate at AI and the adoption of AI. We know that citizens and students and academics are seeking to know what AI is, what it can do, how it can help power economic growth, how it can help create jobs. But as more people see and experience AI themselves, I've looked at many of your projects, many of them around healthcare, technology, transportation. We've realized that the global public now wants to see how governments are approaching it and how we're working together with the private sector to leverage the benefits of AI and support AI innovation. And so each day in my current job at Google, I work with governments around the region to look at how AI can serve their communities, how it can benefit national visions around digital and tech transformation. And so our speakers today on the panel are doing their part to do just that. I'm very honored to have them with me on the panel. Maria has already made the introductions. I'll say we do have time for Q&A, so please keep in mind any notes or questions for our speakers. But without further ado, I'd love to dive right in and maybe start with Dr. Noha. So let's start off with the key topic and theme of this discussion today, around AI governance. Dr. Noha, I'd love to get your view on how you approach the concept of AI governance and how do you move from strategy to implementation?
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here, for inviting me to this panel. And actually, I will speak, I have several hats. So I'm going to be speaking, I have a government hat, since I'm advisor to the minister for R&D, but also I have an academic hat, as I am a professor of computer systems and engineering in Alexandria University. From the data governments, I will talk first from the government hat. The government of Egypt take data governance very seriously. and make all the efforts in order that AI is used safely, transparently, ethically. And it's taking the steps towards that. It likes to support innovation while in the same time safeguarding the use of AI. So it has worked on to generate or setting up the National Council for AI. It has the data protection law, which was in 2020. It has generated the charter for Egyptian Action for Responsible AI, and this was in 2023. It has just released the governance framework for AI, and this was in 2025. The ministry or the government, they would like to act not as regulator, but more of an orchestrator, because they would like to support innovation. They don't want it to be, they want to not to be somehow the balance in between, the US, where, they are not really into having laws governing the AI. They are not for that. And on the other hand, Europe, which has generated or we have issued the law for AI, but then they found that they are, it's limiting them and constraining them from doing lots of things that they want to do. So we are trying to do it on, taking the balance between the two. But actually, again, from the government perspective, they didn't want to be like sitting there waiting until all this is, completed. So in 2020, the Ministry of Information Communication Technology set up a new center, which is called the Applied Innovation Center, which I had the honor of co-founding this center. And the reason or the mandate of the center is basically to provide solutions using innovative technology, which currently is AI, for solutions for problems that they have impact on the society. And on the other hand, also is to the other objective is basically to capacity building for Egyptians or non-Egyptians if we'd like to join AIC. We're not bound to only Egyptians. But the training is different. It's hands-on training on projects. And for that, actually, we have been putting also data governance in our site. It's not overlooked because data governance is very, very important. I'll tell you, an example to tell you so that you can see how we put it into a practice. We thought about a problem, which I'm going to describe to you, which is basically diabetic retinopathy. Diabetic retinopathy is a disease which affects the eyes of diabetic patients. Now, Egypt, unfortunately, we do have almost 20% of our population are diabetic. So it's, this is a serious, number. We are over 100 million, so this is 20 million plus patients. And now this disease is basically, it has 5 grades, so it starts slowly, and they should be going to an ophthalmologist to make a screening every year to check which stage they are in. Now, a combination of lack of awareness, lack of financial means to go to ophthalmologist, they don't go. So basically, they start on going to the ophthalmologist when they are in grade 4 and 5, where they started not seeing. So this is, of course, causes loss of sight and losing jobs, quality of life, and what. So basically, this is something that really, really can have an impact. So we decided that we were going to tackle this problem. Now, I'll tell you a story which, I think that you'll like it. The fact that there was a French company which had a product that's available for screening, that it is using it in France. So we had a discussion with this company, and we told them, how about that we collaborate together? And said, yes, we like very much so. Okay, how we're going to do the collaboration? The fact that you open for us your source code, our people, our IIC people, they learn, they adapt, because it has to be localized. This is something that cannot be just brought in and used as is. we have to localize it to the local data. So we want our people to learn how to fine-tune. So we will collect the data, we will do the fine-tuning, and in the end, you will have a product which is localized. That is, you have an exposure to Egyptian market. For the government, it's going to be maybe subsidized. So this is great and so on. And then they said, oh, you know, we have Servier, this is a French company which has bought the IPR for us to sell it to the in Europe, so we can't open the source code. You just give us your data and we do the adaptation. So we told them, no, thank you very much. We don't do that, okay? And we said, يعني إحنا, say it in Arabic, إحنا ناقصين إيد ولا رجل. And actually, the R&D engineers who are in AIC, along with the leader who was at the time who was an associate professor, they have كسروا دماغهم. They went and they looked into research papers, they learned how to do it, and they have came up with an AI engine which does the screening and with specificity and sensitivity to metrics, which is very interesting or important for the ophthalmologist, over 96%, which is more than any academic published paper or any product which is in the market. So here is the message what I will say, you can do it. Actually, one of the team member who was in there, he is in this room, but now he's not in AIC, he's now doing his PhD. So you guys, you can do it. We can do it. We can do great work. But the other message what I wanted to say is, in order to do that, we had to collect data and notate it, okay? And here comes the data governance. It's not an easy job. It's not something like that. No, we had to think how we are going to collect the data, how to do it. You know, I mean, it has to be not biased data set. It had to have, you know, female, males, age distribution, and so on and so forth. We had to have a very high quality data. So it had to be annotated. We had to look for medics or ophthalmologists, and we had to have them certified for grading. This is not something they say, oh yeah, the labeling, yeah, this looks like that he is grade 2. Okay, no, this is responsibility. We are going to be producing a system which is going to be used. So we had to generate consent for the patients to sign in order to, so that they understand, you know, I mean, that what it is used for. And some of them I said, no, we don't want to. So we had to comply to that. So these are aspects of data governance that had to be put on the ground while we are in practice. So it's not data governance it's not just papers and, you know, I mean, words on papers. It has to be in practice.
Thank you, Dr. Noha. Thank you. Is this on? Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Noha. That was very important. It was a fantastic segue, I think, to the next few questions around how we sort of import the idea of governance rather than just from a concept moving more into practical implementation. And I'll have a question for Mehdi later about how to also integrate it into the life cycle. I'll move on to you, Dr. Chawla, in your current capacity as Chief Scientist at the Qatar Computing Research Institute. We'd love to understand your primary research focus in AI, and what are some of the factors that have driven the success of your work specifically around FANAR. I'm not sure if everyone in the room is familiar with FANAR, but I do want to give Dr. Sanjay the opportunity to tell us a little bit about how it aligns with Qatar and the region's broader tech transformation goals.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. So I think, you know, QCRI has been around for 15 years. And one of the first things they did was to start an Arabic language technology group. So that's our oldest group, and it has made many products on Arabic, NLP. And so when the time came for LLMs, I guess, so we had the background, and so we said, okay, let's try to learn how to build an LLM from scratch. And it aligned with Qatar's national vision of transforming itself into a knowledge economy. So we said we should have some capacity in the country to be able to build the whole AI stack from scratch. And then the government pitched in. We were able to get some hardware, And what we've learned over the last 2 years, so we just released FANAR 2.0 in the AI Summit, is that, of course, we can build the whole stack, but what Dr. Noha was mentioning is that the key thing turns out to be data, right? And of course, you can scrape data from Common Crawl. You can do some, pre-training, continual pre-training. And as many of you know, that the Arabic-speaking population of the, is like 4% of the world population is probably Arabic-speaking, but the internet, on the internet, is I think 0.3 or 0.4% of the data is Arabic. So, so I think there should be a concerted effort across the MENA region, the Arabic-speaking region, to collect high-quality data, possibly exchange it. Of course, data. Whenever you talk about data exchange, people get worried about data leakage. But I think there are other tools like federated learning and homomorphic encryption that we can exploit to really build a credible Arabic AI stack. And I think, so this is our sort of lesson in the last 2 years. I don't speak for the government. So I think from a governance perspective, coming back to just continuing from before, I think you can have sort of horizontal governance and you can have sort of vertical governance. Horizontal governance could be, these are the rules that any AI provider or AI technology creator has to follow about regulation, safety, data exchange. But they could also be vertical. Every industry will have to come up with their own sort of mechanisms for AI, how to govern AI. I'm more biased towards the vertical. I think that will probably lead to more innovation, and every industry is slightly different. But the thing about AI is, whatever I say today, tomorrow it could be completely different. So it's very hard to have a deep stand on something. Somebody said, if the facts change, I change my mind. And I sort of follow that sort of approach. Thank you.
That's a very good point. I think many of us in the room, the researchers, the academics in the room, will feel the same way about approaching AI. I want to dive right into products. As I mentioned, I've seen everyone, the projects, the level of innovation that's in the room. I'd love to ask you, Mehdi, in your role as Chief Product and Technology Officer, you're at the forefront of productizing AI. How do you make sure that AI governance moves from being a checklist in, Department of Legal or compliance into being a core feature of the product lifecycle?
Yeah, of course. So actually the rules of building products haven't changed in many, many years. I was reading notes that my dad took 30 years ago, and it was a conference where Bill Gates was speaking about building products, and it's fascinating how it's all about the same things we say today of understand your users, work backwards from there, then figure out the technology, etc. So there are a lot of things that are always there and that you have to build on. Now, the big change is that today we have access to some very, very powerful tools that have come out of research labs. And what they introduce is that it is not deterministic anymore, right? Like they're quite probabilistic. And so you need to be incredibly careful about what you do. In the example that Dr. Noha shared about the algorithm for diabetic retinopathy, we worked actually on a similar thing in 2016 for DR and macular degeneration, glaucoma, etc. And we got to the same point that you mentioned, which is, we trained it on data from the UK, but for it to be able to be used elsewhere, well, you need to add more data into your mixture so that you can generalize. So we went to Japan and Brazil and other places in Africa, etc. Those are the guardrails, right? Like, as in, you cannot deploy things without checking that it will not harm the end users. Like, if you use that was developed in France, in Egypt, probably you'd have misdiagnosed the specificity, like the 2 metrics that you mentioned would be completely off. So you need to do a lot of evaluations. You need to think about the downstream impact of what you do, and understand like where is the guardrail, right? The agents, which is the word that everybody uses, like these are a combination in some form of learning plus search or tools, and then guardrails. And those are really important because otherwise you might end up in situations where you have harmful consequences. For example, you might remember the chatbot from Air Canada that did a bunch of random things and antagonized users, right? Because it picked policies that weren't there. There are similar things with the CFO of a company that thought they were speaking to their CEO, and they ended up wiring 50 million to fraudsters. So in this new era, right, like especially given these technologies are incredibly new and people are figuring out how to use them and work with them, you need to be a bit careful and try to find the middle ground between the approach you mentioned in the US where you can try a lot of things, or the one in Europe where you cannot try anything. And so you have to figure out like where is the good point for you, right? We are currently, and maybe I'll end with this, is we're currently, today actually we're doing code freeze on a project that we will launch in the next 2 weeks, which 1 billion people will be able to use. And for that one, there are incredibly tough constraints of what the system can spit out or not, given the potential harm it will do and the differences in implications for that. So yeah, you move from it being a checklist to it actually being a full part of what you do. You evaluate everything that you do, you get feedback from users, and you make sure that there are no catastrophic downstream implications that would harm people or the companies that are trusting you, and so on and so forth.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mehdi. I think the idea or the concept about representation in data has been, a recurring theme in your responses. And before I ask you my next question, Dr. Noha, around the intersection of AI and culture, or AI culture and demographics, maybe just for a moment, I'd love to get just show of hands representation in the room. Can you sort of just shout where you're from? Saudis, Morocco, Yemen, Tunisia, Syria, Lebanon, wonderful. Turkey, wonderful. So a lot of people represented here, right? And we want to see, and a lot of age groups. I see a lot of females, males. This is very important, right? I'm a big believer in, part of being a Googler in this part of the world is showing American companies the potential in the region here, right? We feel strongly about that. So I'd love to ask you, Dr. Noha, tell us a bit more about the intersection of AI and culture. Why is that important in your experience?
Well, I mean, I find that, culture and demography, they are very tied to AI. I mean, like I said, and like Mehdi has said also, you just cannot take a product, AI product or library or whatever, and just use it as is. Actually, when we just started in 2020, and this is on AI, this is before LLM, we decided that we want to develop tools that they are specific for the Egyptian dialect, because they were already tools that they are handling the MSA, or the Modern Standard Arabic. But Egyptian dialect, it was not really so, for instance, automatic speech recognition, text-to-speech, machine translation, they were not really good. So we spent lots of time into collecting data and building engines and so on. And then this just opened doors for so many use cases and applications that they are based on the Egyptian dialect that we could not think of. So this is one thing also that that is really very tight on culture, is that we were discussing with Cairo University in Faculty of Medicine application for mental health care. Now this is something that it is very, very tied to our culture. And here our culture, I'm not saying also just Egyptian culture. Here it is for the whole MENA. We cannot rely on a chatbot or a AI engine which is developed in the UK for mental health care and deploying it in the Middle East. So this has to be localized, just as healthcare has to be localized. And this is, again, we have experience on that, not only for diabetic retinopathy, macular degeneration, glaucoma, and this is another thing that we have been working on, but also, for instance, for breast cancer. We have been working with an NGO in Egypt, which is called Geha, which is offering detection, screening, and treatment for women cancer for free. We have developed an engine for detection, helping them in detection, classification, symmetry, density, and so on of the breast cancer. And they said, well, we had a product which was offered to them for almost for free, which was developed in Korea. And they were not happy with, because actually the breast density, the structure of the breast for the Middle East is different than either in Asia or in Europe or in the States. So basically, again, we developed this AI engine for them to use, and they're helping the radiologists and oncologists in order to analyze the mammogram in much less time than they were spending, 40 minutes or an hour onto the mammogram. So again, they were not happy with this product, the Korean one, because it was having misclassification. So demography and culture is really very, very important and very tied to AI.
And I think also the work that you all are doing in AI has contributed largely to the preservation and advancement of Arabic language, but also culture in MENA. With everybody here represented, countries, we have our specificities, but also a lot in common, and it's important that this is represented. I do want to give time to the audience, so maybe I'll jump to you, Dr. Sanjay, specifically about opportunities that students can find at QCRI. There's a lot that you're doing in the region. What and how can students engage with the Institute, and how would it prepare them for a career in AI?
Yeah, so, of course, QCRI is part of Hamad bin Khalifa University, so it's a graduate school. So, people can come through that program. But of course, we also have summer internships. We have people coming for postdocs. And of course, events like MenaML can also be pathways to, interact with people from QCRI. So there are lots of opportunities available. And I think one thing we're trying to do is that the way QCRI is set up, we try to give it's capacity building, but capacity building to do research. So I think in that sense, over the last 15 years, we have had the opportunity to work with many, many students and researchers, and that's how we are sort of contributing. Yeah.
Brilliant. So for any of you based in the region or based out of Qatar, please do reach out. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities.
Many people like Safa, Yazan, Anas, there are many people from QCRI in here, so please send an email to me. We'll be happy to get in touch. So.
Brilliant. Mehdi, I want to jump to another key question that I know many of the students and researchers here. How do you ensure that AI startups are thriving in the age of, increasing regulatory blockers, increasing challenges when it comes to access to infrastructure? You spent a lot of time at DeepMind. You're now part of a separate firm. What would be your advice, I would guess, for young entrepreneurs going through this process and looking to sort of branch out and develop something of their own?
Yes, so there are there's a lot of conversation about what to build, right? Like you have on the one hand, there's the AI hype folks with this is just a fad and it will disappear. On the other, you have those who say, no, this is completely changing the world and we will cure cancer, go to the moon, do a lot of things. I think in the middle of all this noise, right, like one can feel massively overwhelmed when they try to explore what to do. And so my advice is perhaps to come back to what unique view do you have, what unique insight do you have that you think is different from what others are seeing, and then lean in on that and build through that. Because ultimately, in a lot of these areas, is the contrarian that leads to outsized outcomes. I think Dr. Noha said just before that there was a pre-LLM world. It's hard to believe that there was a pre-LLM world, right? But there actually was a pre-LLM world. And the folks who built these LLMs, nobody believed in what they were doing. So at Google, right, like my previous employer, the guy who started working on this, his bosses told him not to work on this. And he couldn't find compute. Seems like it's the same history again, right? Like nobody can find compute. But back then, to build the very, very first ones, this poor guy couldn't find the compute to build it. And so he had a sign at lunch in the office that said, "Would you lend me your compute?" So this is how he got from the other researchers a bit of compute to start his project. And that was T5, right? Text to transformer something, which was like the first LLM. So I think for all of you, those who have entrepreneurial drive, you should think about like what is it that you feel is unique, insight that you have on the world, and then build on it. You should also check with other people, right? Like it's always good to get advice and check that, because you can have a contrarian thing that takes you into a wall, right, too? So it's good to sometimes have, don't just be contrarian. I think check, get advice, think through like how, what is it that you can bring to the world? How will you do that? And many times we do not have all the skills to do everything, right? Like founders, sometimes they have co-founders, sometimes they're three. If there are too many, it's also complicated. But people need to be complemented with other folks who have different skills. And we're not there at the point where that can come from your personal AI agent. So maybe you have to wait a bit until that. But yeah, my advice is, one, think about like what is your, where is your passion, and what unique insight does that give you to things. Then look at how do you complement yourself with other people who can add to your adventure. And then, as you were saying, oh, yeah, you should try. Like there is no reason why some people in parts of the world do incredible things and others in others should think that it's not for them. It's your life. So it's your time. You have access to all the content in the world, right? Like there is everything, you can find it. I was amazed that other winter school or summer schools were folks in like really remote villages, like where my grandma was born, that they knew about literally everything. While hundreds of years ago, well, more than 100, maybe 110, my grandma was born, there was absolutely zero chance that she would have access to the same things that somebody who back then lived in, I don't know, London or New York would have. So I think, yeah, geography is not really the bear that it used to be. So last words is figure out what you like, what your passion is, and then try.
You say that as if it's an easy thing. Figuring out your passion can be very difficult, but that's a very important point to end the conversation on. And
about culture and safety,
please,
just to follow up. So in FANAR we've built, as part of FANAR we built this module called Islamic RAG. So any query, any prompt related to religion goes through the Islamic RAG. But there's so much interesting research out in that area. For example, if you want to, you can't generate Quranic verses; they have to be retrieved. So which parts, how do you actually marry the two is very interesting. Similarly, people disagree. There's no such thing as uniform culture, right? So even we had somebody asked a prompt, and the answer was, according to Islam, this should happen. But there's a very senior professor in our university says, you cannot start a sentence with according to Islam. There are different schools of Islam. So I think there are amazing opportunities to how do you do alignment. You just can't add. You can add data, but I think there are technical issues that if you add too much out of distribution data, your model starts behaving differently. So I think you can use safety, cultural alignment as a stepping stone to do really original research. And I encourage you to explore it. So.
Clearly, I think there's never been a more exciting time for all of us to be having this conversation, and to hear all of your different perspectives has been incredibly enriching. I know we're running a little bit short on time, and I do want to give the audience some room to ask questions. I do have more questions for our speakers, but maybe we can take a quick break and take questions from the audience. And if I'm not sure if you want to line up next to the microphones, or as long as we can hear you.
Cool. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is a bit double-ended towards more of a startup, but also on a country or government level. So if a country or a startup want to go into the path of AI and not miss out, what would you say would you prioritize for both? Is it infrastructure or maybe talent? So if we look at it from those perspectives, what should be prioritized? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we'll collect 2 or 3 questions if somebody else, or yeah? Would you like, are you addressing it to someone in specific, or?
So I think Mr. Mehdi can elaborate a bit more on the startup perspective, and maybe Dr. Noha on the maybe governmental or country level aspect of AI.
So what would you think about first? Infrastructure, talent, skills, yes. What would be most important from a product perspective and then from a governance perspective?
Yeah, okay, I can go then on the, yeah, on the startup. I think it's always comes back to the team, right? What are their skills? What are they trying to do? And then the resources, which means you have to raise money, then you have to use that for the components that will help you go there. Either hire other people who complement you, or get access to compute, or get access to data that you will label, or get access to other things, right? So I think it really depends. If you are a OpenAI, it would have meant, oh, I need to get a ton of compute from NVIDIA. If you're somebody building a like workflow automation tool, or let's say the example you gave about the RAG on Quran, then it's a different, you don't need that. You need maybe people who understand search and will do alignment, etc. So yeah, these are 2 extreme examples.
Maybe Dr. Noha, from your perspective,
well, I mean, for the government, I mean, this is something which is, I mean, it's across the nation, so it's not something which something specific. So again, it depends. But when you want to conduct AI, you have 3 things. You have infrastructure. What you need 3 things. You need actually the use case. So it's 4 things. The use case, which is, I mean, you need to find a use case which does have an impact. So this is that. But this is for you, for the startup. But the government, I mean, in order to have AI, you need 3 things: infrastructure, data, and talent. Okay, these are 3 things that they are necessary in order to the. Of course, you can optimize in 3 things. So I mean, the government cannot offer everything. So you can do a little bit of optimization, like for instance, and this is what we do, like data. You don't have like data, I mean, available, I mean, sparse specifically for some specific problem that you have. But then you can use international data, and then you can use like some local data in order to fine tune and, I mean, and localize. For instance, I mean, on the infrastructure, again, it's not, I mean, it's not easy. It's very expensive. So you need to do, I mean, extra optimization in order to be able to use, I mean, smaller or large on a lower compute need, and so on and so forth. Talent, we have talent. I mean, I want to emphasize that. I mean, the last couple of days I have had a conversation with many nationalities. I mean, Saudis, Lebanese, Syrian, Yemenis. Of course, Egyptian and Alexandrians, and I know those, but the others, mashallah, very good talent. So you can really do it. You can really do it.
Thank you, Dr. Noha. Shall we take another question?
Yes. First of all, thank you for putting together this interesting topic. As discussed and as Dr. Noha emphasized on the fact that there is different direction toward these AI regulations. Like in the US market, they are ready to lose European customers in order for regulations. So how this might affect the future of collaboration between different regions, since each one is being oriented toward an AI-specific governance and rules.
How the region is approaching this?
Yeah, how this region-specific governance might affect the collaboration between different regions. Like if a European company is going to work with an US company, while each one of them is having a different culture and laws, how that might affect this collaboration. Yeah, thank you.
Would you like a specific panelist to answer that?
Maybe Dr. Noha, because she already started talking about this.
Well, I mean, actually, this is something for them to solve. We are not we are not going to be solving the problem of Europe and the US. I think that what we need to focus more on is our region. I mean, I think that we are here. We want to facilitate and be enabler for startups and companies and in our region. So we need to be aware of the data governance and regulations. They have to be there. We have, even if they are not there, we need to abide to it so that, you know, I mean, we guarantee that our product, they are well received. Basically, actually, in order also to part partially of your question, Europe is currently is really limited, and, you know, I mean, they are kicking themselves that they have this law that they are not able to move out of it, but they are trying to move out of it. So they are trying to find, you know, I mean, acts that within the EU that would allow them, for instance, to train copyrighted material and to have allowance to train the copyrighted material without, you know, I mean, and having with an exclusive right. So they're trying to get out of it. So if there is a collaboration with them, it's them. We do not have the problem, or, you know, I mean, in our nations we don't have the problem. The problems come from their side. So, but they are trying to release those so that they can go into this collaboration. So I do not think we should worry that much about it.
Please.
Yeah. So I think one thing at least in this region, what I've observed is that the government is a bigger innovator. We were discussing about it than the private sector. So and that has sort of like a double-edged sword in some sense. But so that's somehow we need to understand that and then build upon it, because, you know, private sector is very risk averse here, but government is, at least in the Gulf countries, they are willing to take risks and try out new things. So if people from the other regions come in, you know, they need, and work and collaborate, I think they need to have that in mind. So.
Mehdi, would you like to add anything? You're someone who also, you've worked across continents. What does it mean for us to sort of bypass those geographical boundaries?
Yeah, I'll just double down on what Dr. Sanjay was saying. It is true here. It's incredible that governments are first to adopt things and to push things way, way, way faster than what you see elsewhere, where you would expect the private sector to be the first one to get in this. For example, in France, it was that startup that did the medical models you mentioned, but not while here it seemed to be the state that is trying to fix that, right? I think to the previous point, yeah, the internet was supposed to be this very open platform that everybody can access and you can do a lot of things in it. And it ended up being closed very quickly, right? Like lots of monopolies, etc. Some countries even shut down their borders so that you don't, like China, etc. And I think in this phase, people are trying to learn from that one and wonder, oh, did we do the right choice back then of just opening up everything? And then in the case of Europe, there is no European Google or European Meta or etc. And so they're bit worrying, while you look at China and they have exactly the same other things that are homegrown. And in some cases, like payments, for example, it's completely different. And in some ways, people might argue way better. So this thing that currently is happening is people wonder, should I close and do my own things, or should I open, and what will happen there? And yeah, I second Dr. Noha on this one. I think there are a lot of examples in the region where people built their own LLMs to make sure that they understand the technology, that nobody can cut them out from it. But the region is also incredibly open to working with everybody. We use models from all over the world. We pick the ones that are fit for the use case, which was your fourth pillar. I think everybody has to really, and it's the same for the previous question actually, is what are you trying to solve, right? Like there is no right or wrong. It really depends on what you're trying to solve.
Brilliant. Thank you all. Do we have any last questions? We're happy to stay for a few extra minutes outside of the auditorium for any side notes, but I'd love to thank you all for the incredible questions and thank our speakers. A few key takeaways. Oh, there's another question. Do we have...
Hi. So my question is on openness and specifically open source and kind of whether that could be an enabler for the region, given that the Middle East kind of consists of many, many nations, but a lot of us have access to the internet. It can be a real enabler. Is there any problems with that are specific to the region? And kind of across your institutions, are you supporting this? Thank you.
Actually, I'm glad that you opened this. The Applied Innovation Center, which we talked about, we have decided strategically that we are going to be working everything open source. So we don't have a single proprietary license in all the projects that we are working on. We have a variety. We have varieties of projects on different, healthcare. We have on languages and NLP and NLU and understanding. We have satellite, projects based on satellite and everything we're using everything open source. However, there is one thing that I would like to mention as an advice to the students, is that when you use, licenses is something that you need to look at. Open source does not mean that it is just free and then you can do anything with it. No, there are different licenses. And when you are using even a library, which is open source, look at the license to see whether it fits into what you are building or not. Because there could be, if you are going to be commercializing this product, the license could be inhibiting that. There are some products that, tools or open source, they say if you are going to be naming your product something, then the name of the original product has to be in the name of the. There are some restrictions so please do pay. I'm saying this to, from the, again, it's the academic hat, which is, I see that people graduate and they don't pay attention to that. So this is something that I wanted to give you as an advice.
I agree with Professor Noha. You have to have a nuanced understanding of open source, but doesn't mean. Also, I don't believe in putting everything in the open. Sometimes you want to keep it proprietary. If you have a new idea, for example, if you look at LLMs which are open, in some sense, and you're doing work on it, then you're, tomorrow they could take part of it and sort of a branch of it and close it, and you are contributing to it. So I think you have to be careful about open source also, I think.
Yeah, same as my colleagues. It's all in the nuance, right? Like there is open source and there is open weights and there is open this and that. And so, agree on everything that was said. As we use open source, we contribute to open source model. It all depends on what our users and partners want, right? And so we have no dogma on this. It's great that there are open source models because people can keep building on them, and the science has always been about sharing things and peer-reviewed stuff. So it's a bit strange that you cannot check what's under the hood. So it's great to have open source, but as my friend said, look at what are you using it for and check that it fits your needs.
Brilliant. Thank you so very much. I honestly have personally learned a lot from this panel. A few key takeaways. Localization is important, representation, data hygiene for what you're doing. Governments are acting as orchestrators rather than as inhibitors, which is unique in this part of the world, and we're privileged to be part of that discussion. The rules of the game are constantly changing. If we have this discussion a year from now, that's also changing very quickly. And so, again, pleasure to have you all. Thank you very much for all of your incredible questions, and thank you to our speakers. I look forward to continuing this conversation. This is not a one-time thing. We'd love to keep this conversation going. I think the more dialogue there is in this area, the more we can represent the region and make sure that the advancements in AI continue to reflect our part of the world. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to Mehdi, Dr. Sanjay, Dr. Noha for joining me on stage. Thank you.